social democracy that we imagined. What you're offering us is debt peonage to the British financial interests, and that's not the same thing as European social democracy.
So then, does this development in Iceland foretell the breaking up of the European Union?
It could, if Europe lets England and Holland financial interests act as Mr. Brown has said he's going to act as debt collectors and bludgeon Iceland into either having financial debt peonage or membership in Europe, then this is going to break up Europe. And it'll be broken up by England and Dutch intransigence, not by communism, not by the post-Soviet economies, not by Iceland. Only Europe can break itself up.
Now, initially, it's going to be Iceland and the post-Soviet Eastern European countries that are going to break away, assuming this does, in fact, happen. Do you see anything happening to the rest of the European Union, say Britain and the continent?
A lot of people are looking at the strains that are developing now. In many ways, Europe today is not what was the case in the European common market in the 1960s and 70s. The common market had 7 countries. Germany and France were the key, along with Italy and the Benelux countries. The common market really was a unit. In opposition to the common market and its common agricultural policy, to the EFTA had the 7. So you had the 6 common market countries, and you had the 7 EFTA countries, and Europe joined with Scandinavia. And once England went into the common market, it has acted as a wrecker to try to turn the common market away from the ideals that originally were created by socialists and internationalists after World War II into a kind of financial nationalism on the part of England and the Scandinavian countries. And what you may have is Europe going back to the original post-Sputnik development after 1957 of the common market, continental Europe, acting independently of the periphery, England and Scandinavia. And at that point, they make a much better deal with the post-Soviet economies, because the problem with the post-Soviet economies really is Anglo-American neoliberalism, that France and Germany have not really played a role in this. Europe doesn't really have a stake in the game that Gordon Brown is playing, and it may decide that it prefers to operate on a continental basis and just leave England to be towed by a tugboat off the coast of Rhode Island, where it probably belongs politically, rather than being part of Europe.
So you're saying that it's mainly Great Britain that has caused a lot of this financial problem?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the post-Soviet economies in Eastern Europe, when they broke away from the Soviet Union, I believe you've pointed out in some of your writings that they owned everything outright, and now they're completely in debt.
That's right. Communist parties had a government bureaucracy, but what they didn't have was a financial bureaucracy. And it turns out that they were all against government planning, because the government planning by the Soviets, we all know the inefficiencies that had. But it turns out that what these countries now have is still centralized planning, but it's central planning by the international bankers, by the Americans, by the English, by cosmopolitan bankers, and their own kleptocrats, who are the same people who had power during the communist era. They wanted to get rid of the communist planners, and now they still have the communist planners, but they're all neoliberal bankers. And the planning is simply for themselves, and essentially they've turned the public infrastructure, the roads, the gas companies, and the real estate into toll booths to extract rent from the population. So the post-communist countries have gotten rid of the Stalinist bureaucracy, only to have a financial bureaucracy that's even more oppressive.
Well, Michael Hudson, with regard to Iceland and Eastern Europe and the EU in general, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just read the international press. You're not going to have much in the American press on it. I haven't seen a word in the American press. It's amazing that here you have such a major geopolitical rift that there's not a word of it in the United States. And that's what happens when you let neoliberals control the press and control the universities. In order for neoliberal economics to work, you have to have totalitarian control of the press and the universities. You have to have complete censorship so that people do not know there's any alternative to the junk economics that you're peddling. And the neoliberals blocked any discussion of this anywhere in the American press. That's their idea of free markets. In order to have free markets, you have to have a intellectual police state in academia and the media. And that's sort of also not in the neoliberal textbook. Free markets mean intellectual dictatorship, and that's what we have here. So read the international press, and this is what is being discussed all over the rest of the world outside of the United States and England.
Well, Michael Hudson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bonnie.
There's something happening here. Yeah. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there.
I've been speaking with Dr. Michael Hudson. Today's show has been Iceland Recovering from Neoliberal Disaster. Michael Hudson is a financial economist and historian. He is president of the Institute for the Study of Long-Term Economic Trend, a Wall Street financial analyst, and distinguished research professor of economics at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. His 1972 book, Super Imperialism, The Economic Strategy of American Empire, is a critique of how the United States exploited foreign economies through the IMF and World Bank. He is also author of The Myth of Aid and Global Fracture, The New International Economic Order. Dr. Hudson authored a textbook used since 1969 in his International Trade and Financial Theory course at the New School and now at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, entitled Trade, Development, and Foreign Debt, which will be available on print on demand through Amazon. An earlier version was published by Pluto Press in 1992, but this is an expanded version of his lectures in the history of economic thought. Dr. Hudson has been a consultant to foreign governments, including Canada, Mexico, Russia, and now Latvia. Visit his website at www.michael-hudson.com. That's Michael-Hudson, Hudson.com.